Hello and welcome to Productivity Nerd, a podcast all about getting shit done, hopefully in an elegant way that doesn't leave you too broken. In our crazy worlds, we're all about balancing the need to work enough to make ends meet, enough not to annoy our bosses, but also enough that we feel like we've done enough, which can be a whole different psychological and emotional ballgame, along with the human need to rest and stay well. Plus, on top of that, we'd quite like to enjoy ourselves, maybe just a little bit along the way, spending quality time with those we love. I, for one, love hearing about how people get that balance and work more efficiently so they have more time to do the things that they love.
Hi and welcome to Productivity Nerd. Today, Helen and I are wrestling with values. Yep, we do attempt to get quite deep and meaningful. I'm afraid we obviously wildly digress and we end up talking about driving habits and the cultures of indicating on roundabouts. But we really tried. We tried. Do give it a listen. Hello and welcome to Productivity Nerd. I'm Kathy Soulsby and I'm here with Helen Taylor, as you all know by now. He actually runs the entire operation while I just sit here and vaguely take the credit. But today we're doing something that sounds nothing really like a productivity episode. But actually, it's probably the most productive thing we've ever done. We are talking about values. So our problem is we spend every episode sort of banging on about getting the right things done, tools, systems, routines, habits, all of that. But it doesn't actually mean anything if you don't know what the right things are. So you can be super efficient, but still spend your life like clearing away emails that never needed clearing because they're not in service of the main goal. So before you can be productive, you have to answer a much more annoying question, which is what actually matters to me? Because if you don't know that, then you're not productive. You're just busy and effective are not the same thing. And as you know from previous podcasts we've done, and those I've done with Claire, working out the whole big why, as some self-help folks like to call it, I've found genuinely impossible. Helen and I have had many conversations about this. For me, I can't get my head around visualizing a future in that way. I just find it really tricky. I can certainly list a few things I probably don't want to do. And being realistic, it's a bit late in the game for me to find a rich millionaire and retire to a country estate. So there's things that probably aren't going to be in my future. But in an attempt to think about, what that big thing that is life, we read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and can tell you the answer is 42. End of podcast. Thank you for listening. No, not really. But we should. Have you ever read it?
I read it, seen the films, got the radio show on cassette somewhere. I love Hitchhiker's Guide.
I have, shockingly, I have never read it. It might be my summer homework. But I still know the answer is 42. So
I'm saying it's great. I love it.
Okay, that's going to be my next Audible. Good. What we actually did, because we're grown-ups, is we listened to an episode of a new podcast called Solved. Actually, I'm not sure it is new. I think we might have just stumbled across it. It's called Solved by Mark Manson and his co-host and researcher, Drew Burney. And Mark Manson, you may or may not know him from The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That Mark, which we are both, I am in the middle of reading, Helen is about to read. It's very good, very similar to the podcast. Because what is important to us shows up in our values. So if we can suss that out, maybe we can get closer to the what do we want to be doing in 20 years' time thing. The podcast is like 4 hours long. It is meaty and it goes everywhere.
Is a short one as well. The series of the sort of podcast, they can go on for 6-7 hours.
Yeah,
but that's the idea. You never need to listen to another podcast about this again. It is solved.
Yeah. And although it was long, I didn't resent it being long at all. I was thoroughly engrossed the whole way through, actually. It's a top, I think I was driving certainly one direction when I was listening to it, and it did keep me really interested. There are some great anecdotes as well as some really decent kind of research from different things. So, first impressions of that podcast episode, what kind of stuck with you?
I think I kind of fell onto this by accident from another one of their podcasts, and it was about the idea that you procrastinate and you don't want to do certain things because it contradicts your values. And I immediately went, I'm going to listen to value, I want to find out what on earth my values are. And they talk about, they run you through various exercises of how to figure them out.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of online quizzes you can do, similar to Myers-Briggs and all that kind of thing. So that's what really stuck with me, was going off and doing those things and figuring out what my values are and which ones are the ones that sort of take priority. So everyone has different degrees of these values, but it's which ones are like at the top and which ones are more prominent for you. And then there's a fun game they play where you have to sort of pick which one you would drop.
Yes, I enjoyed that bit. I think we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, so probably that's what stuck with me. And it might, like most self-help books, there's a lot of, yeah, exactly. I kind of already knew that, but now I'm having it by two really smart people who are saying, this is the thing. Like, yeah, I know. So
Yeah.
I always like when smart people agree with me.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so obviously we are forever telling clients to set long-term goals if they don't have them already. The problem is you can't set that goal if you don't know what you're aiming at. So, I know randomly in the past I've talked about a dog sanctuary. I don't know why. And potholing as a never going to happen. A year traveling, never working a Friday again. Whatever your version is of what the long-term goal is, right? The value leads to that, and a goal is kind of a value with a deadline. So, stepping back and thinking about your values is kind of key.
I'd say the other thing that stuck with me is why I don't want to do things and why certain things make me really angry or really annoy me. And their theory is because they contradict with your values. So being
Yeah,
able to take a step back and go, why is this really getting to me? It's because the base of this is something that contradicts something that's very important to me. And just being able to step away from that, go, oh yeah, that's because this is about they're not being very compassionate or they're not being very reliable, which is the two things that I've identified as being really important to me.
yes,
Okay, they're just that kind of person. They're not the same as me, and that's fine.
yes, yeah. And I absolutely we've got a little chunk to talk about that because that was one thing that really stuck with me as well. So one of the ideas in the podcast is the gap between an interest and a value, and this is one of my favorite stories in the book, and we've talked about this. So Manson, who at one point I believe is was a dating coach. Now may have
Yeah.
he's a dating coach and a sort of life coach and just a very smart guy. Um, but his kind of online career started as a blog about dating, and he's quite into dating, but not in an American bro kind of get the
Kind of
woman,
the
do your
opposite.
NLP way, but in a
Yeah.
very authentic way, which I really like. But he tells this story about a mate of his, and I love it because it is such a corking example of values grinding up. So, new couple met online, right? He's a guy, he's a bit of, I don't want to say he's a bit of a nerd. I don't want to put words in this poor man's mouth. Maybe he's a middle of the road kind of guy. He's well enough off, but he doesn't like splurge cash. His idea of perfect night is kind of beer, maybe a good book, going to bed fairly early. Start seeing this woman who, is lovely, does also own, a wardrobe full of Hermes bags and 20-gram watches and spends half her summer in Saint Tropez. But they both love travel. So they've got common interests, right? They both love travel. So a few months in, they go, oh, let's book a trip to Paris. They're based in the States, don't forget. So that's not like us just nipping over on the Eurostar. That's a fair hike. So they're going for a week. Brave, 3 months into a relationship, I think. But what do you know? Anyway, she offers to sort everything and books all these Michelin-starred restaurants. 500 euros a head for dinner. And the first night, the first dinner, they have an absolutely massive row about money because she thinks that the man should pay for everything. And he's kind of a split the bill sort. But either way, her I mean, there's a myriad of things that
There
have
were
gone wrong
just
with
so
it.
many things, and you can see how it happened on a dating app. You put, I like to travel, I like, I don't know, going outside for walks, and you can see how that coincides, but from really different perspectives.
Massively different perspectives. And yeah, because on paper they're perfect. They both love travel, tick, right? But underneath the travel value with two completely opposing values,
Yeah.
he likes sitting quietly in a museum or sitting with a coffee watching the world go by and people watching. And she wants to be in the restaurant that's hardest to get into, wearing an outfit that costs, probably a month's salary in his world. Same activity, but totally different values. So yeah, I just found that, but yeah, they split up 3 days into weeks. Oopsie. But also I would say from my point of view, but again, maybe this is one of my values. If I was booking entertainment for a holiday, whoever you're going with, whether that's a friend or a partner, surely you get input from them as to what it is they want to do, particularly, especially if you're expected to pay for it.
Well, yes, but then if that's your mindset and values, then it might probably wouldn't occur to you. And I have been
Yeah.
on a holiday with someone who's really into Michelin-star restaurants, and she didn't ask either. We were like, this is not my bag.
Yes, and you have to come out and have fish and chips because you're really hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that when we accidentally went on holiday briefly together, you and I and my partner,
Oh
we
yes.
had lunch, and you were like, "Oh, what hobbies do you have in common?" We had a bit like an existential crisis there. Like, we don't have hobbies in common, but we do have really similar values, really kind of close-knit shared values. And like, it's okay that we don't both love rock climbing because everything else about us is aligned.
Yeah, exactly. And hobbies are one of those things, I think, couples together, it's nice if you enjoy doing some stuff together, but actually it's also nice if you have your own stuff that you can do to talk about when you get back together, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's
Anyway,
way more important that your values are aligned than
absolutely more important than your value. So that's, I think, a really good example of travel was kind of, travel and adventure was kind of a value for both of them, but in both cases, a higher value for them. In her case was kind of pleasure and luxury and
I think they call it hedonism, don't they?
hedonism, yeah.
Yeah,
And
which
in his, it was probably perhaps more curiosity and yeah, I don't know, but yeah, very different. Um, yes, so which brings us neatly to instrumental versus terminal values. So there are two kinds of values. So terminal ones, which are the actual point, the thing itself. So and then instrumental values, which you only care about because they get you to the terminal thing. So I got my head around this. It took me a little bit of brain power because it's very hot and my head hurts. But the obvious instrumental value is money because nobody actually wants money. No one fantasizes about the credits of DuckTales and sitting in a vault like Scrooge McDuck, flicking through a load of notes and gold coins. Actually, in and of itself, money doesn't mean anything, right? If there was a 28 days later type thing happened tomorrow, your Apple Pay would give you no help whatsoever. It wouldn't solve a single problem. People want money for what it gets them. And that could be security, it could be freedom, it could be time, it could be looking after their mum in a care home. Money is an instrumental value for the real thing you want behind that. And the trouble starts when people forget the terminal value and start chasing the instrumental one for its own sake. Like we did a podcast, I can't remember when it was, and it was it Jeff Bezos or someone who's like, well, I've got 3 million, but I need 5. I'll stop when I get to
it was
5.
5 types of wealth, and then people who would never quite have enough, even though
Yeah,
most people that would be an astonishing amount of money.
yes, yeah. And obviously people who do that, they get a few years in, they get knackered and they're doing fine on paper, but they go, I don't know why I'm doing this. It's like, well, no, because you've lost the reason why you're looking for that instrumental value. Another lovely story here from Manson. He's good at knocking them out. The Tiger Woods one.
That was
So,
an amazing story.
that was great. Bit of name dropping there. So he nearly played golf with Tiger Woods and he turned it down by accident. So he was working with Will Smith on Will's book, and Will is quite a good golfer and he's good mates with Tiger Woods. And one evening he just casually goes to Mark, "Oh, do you fancy a round of golf tomorrow?" And he says, "No." He's like, "I don't play. I don't want to make a complete prat of myself and hold everybody up." Because actually, and he's very real. He's a real realist. He's like, golf is not the kind of game you can just turn up and mess about with. It's really irritating if you have somebody playing with you who is utterly crap because it ruins it for everybody else. So he turned it down. And Will's manager kind of sidles up to him and goes, "You should really go to this golf game." And he's like, "No, no, no, I'm not going because I'll just, it'll be a disaster." And the next day, Will wanders in and goes, "Oh, great round. We went out with Tiger Woods. Shame he didn't come." And he was a bit like, "No, why did I go?"
Then he goes off and it becomes determined he's going to do
Yeah,
golf and go and become someone who likes golf. And he does it in
yeah,
3 months and he's like, I still hate golf, not
I
doing that.
still hate golf. Yeah, because actually he was thinking about, he never valued golf. He valued what golf got him, which was access to interesting people that he wouldn't meet otherwise. So golf wasn't the value. The value was a way to meet interesting people. So golf was the instrumental value, and it was rubbish for him because he hated to do it. He forced himself to do it for 3 months, and then went, "Oh, for God's sake, what am I doing? This is awful. I hate it." So thinking for the rest of us, if there's any goal you're working away at, ask why again, and keep going till you hit something that hasn't got a why, and that is your terminal value. And I think we've probably all done this in the past. It's a real coachy thing, isn't it? Why do you want that? Because it gets me this. Why do you want that? Because it gets me this. And right at the very end, that's your terminal value. And if you can't get to one, then it may be that it's not your value at all, and you might be doing it for all sorts of wrong reasons. So I was thinking about this. I thought we could both do it live, which is really mean, because I wrote this down and you didn't, and then I forgot to send it to you.
Values, Kathy is unreliable.
I know.
Go on.
So I did it. I'm like, right, what am I doing at the moment? I'm like, right, at the moment, my sort of biggest mental load project is a bit of a LinkedIn outreach thing I'm doing. And it's like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, well, because I want to obviously I want to find more clients, get more bigger projects, spread the risk of the ones we already have, get more turnover, put more profit in the bank. And it's like, why do I put more profit in the bank? It's like, well, because I want to have more money. So, well, why do I want to have more money? It's like, well, because I'm thinking of my future, because even though apparently I cannot articulate what that future is, I don't want to live in a gutter. So basically it's kind of putting more money into the pension pot. And for me, the kind of terminal value at the end of all of that is safety and security. So that's the big one for me, is safety and security. So I don't want to have a load of money and like buy a BMW or anything. I just want to be able to eat when I'm 80.
That would be the same. I've gone through coaching sessions, and that's where I always end up, is it's about security. And anytime I'm like, oh, why am I so tired? Why am I working so much? Because I want that security. I don't want a thing to happen and me to be completely wiped out.
Yes. And there comes a point, and obviously we're going to talk about competing values and conflicting values. So both of us have that. Interesting, we both have the same one, security and safety value. But at some point, if that is making you work all the hours God sends, at some point there might be a health value in there or I don't know, an enjoyment value that says, actually, should you be working an 80-hour week now for however many years to get to that safety, or is there something that can balance that out? Because that's the kind of thing, isn't it? So a value is what you'll give up, not what you want. I really liked this little reframing thing. So a value is a thing you're willing to give other things up for, right? Because everyone wants everything, right? Wanting is free. The value only shows up at the point you'll sacrifice something else for it. So if you, it's a quote at the end of the book about, I wrote it down, we might come to it later, but basically everybody says they value their time, they value their friendships, they value their partner, they value their work, they value that, but you can't actually have equal values for everything. So and some of the people we work with, right, we're there because they're drowning, and it's like, oh, I really value spending time with my family. It's like, yeah, okay, but you have to give something up to make that happen. You can't say yes to everything.
Client years ago who kept her Wednesday afternoons free for meditation, and nothing was to be booked, and then that was absolutely sacrosanct, because that was what she valued. She valued her mental health and her physical health. So there were just things that you could not book anything over, and that never changed. And I don't think she was the same one, but there was someone else I worked with who would have like hard delete on stuff that came in when they were on holiday. It just got deleted. On the grounds that if it was really important, people would email again.
Wow. Oh, emails, not a calendar invite, literally emails.
Emails. Everything was gone. It was brutal, but also really impressive.
Yes.
And I really admired that, but there's that fear, that safety fear of like, I can't do that because
I'm twitching at the very thought of it.
Exactly. But yeah, no, she kept, I think it was Wednesdays are absolutely nothing. That was just no meetings. I don't want to talk to anybody. And it was 4 o'clock every day was a meditation. End of story. Nothing went over there.
I wish I could be that disciplined about my physio.
But this is the thing, what are we giving up? I have friends here who get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to meditate. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather eat my own hands because I value something else. I value sleep more. And what are you giving up to not do that?
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. And I did, weirdly, after I was prepping this, I sat down and thought about what I need to get done this week and what are my priorities for the week. And even though it's going to take me the least amount of time, if you add it all up together, I put physio on the list because I dropped a ball on it last week, mainly because of new puppy stuff. But it's got to be in my top 3 priorities this week because I need to be able to walk like a normal person again. So, and that might mean that something else doesn't get done, and that's life, right?
Yeah, exactly. But framing it in that way really makes you question, what are my values? If I'm not prepared to reserve 4 o'clock every day to meditate, then clearly I'm valuing something else higher.
Yeah, it's obviously not that important to me if I'm happy to casually override it every time. Yeah.
I think.
Oh, I love that. And then, so Manson's for years was basically kind of going, we should all go in on all one thing, right? The one thing you care about, you should go in all in on it. And then this episode, he sort of takes it back. Because if you just, as we say, go in all in on one value for too long, the others are all going to go to pot, right?
Mm.
If you, I suppose the biggest one is work, right? So if you are a massive high achiever at work, what are the chances you also have a fabulous social life and a healthy body and a fabulous family life? Probably not all going to be great, are they?
Absolutely not. No. And it's something I'm really conscious of in that I don't live with my partner at the moment, so I have time and space to work a lot. But when that changes, if I work at the same rhythm and the same hours, he'll never see me. So that's going to be a shift because
Yeah,
you just can't work late evenings and random weekends if you've got a partner who wants to spend time with you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So he suggests having 3 or 4 values that hold each other up and keep each other honest. So a bit like not putting all your eggs in one basket. And if one thing does go pear-shaped, then something, your whole kind of sense of self doesn't follow, basically.
Mm.
Um, so one thing I did think didn't quite sit right with me was he was saying, if you take action, your values will follow. Well, that clearly didn't work for him with golf, although he did get to the point where he knew what his value was. But I do think this happened to me a bit like the gym. It's a bit like Atomic Habits, isn't it? Where you become the kind of person that. So by doing it, so by going to the gym 3 times a week, you become the kind of person that goes to the gym 3 times a week. By meditating every
Mm.
Wednesday afternoon for 4 hours, you're the kind of person who meditates every Wednesday afternoon for 4 hours. Kudos.
Maybe it doesn't stick because you're not picking the right action that aligns with the value, though.
Well, that was certainly the case for him with golf, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
So,
I think, yeah. But I think from doing a thing, if it starts to feel right, then great, then you're working within your values. If it starts to grate against you, you have to question, well, I'm forcing myself to do this thing. It clearly isn't right for me. What value is it hitting against? Or what value am I trying to get to that this thing is not serving?
yeah. I had a conversation similar to this with someone recently who just really hates cold outreach, but they know they've got to do something. She just it just makes her cringe, gives her the X, the kids say. And she said kind of flippantly, the reason I don't want to do this because in my head I'm Madonna, I'm J-Lo, people should come to me. I'm like, well, okay, I know you're joking, but let's work with that. What would J-Lo do? I'm desperately trying to remember some of her songs. She'd get loud. So no, don't do cold outreach because it obviously grates against something important to you, but you still have to do stuff, get loud, be more J-Lo. So if you don't like cold outreach, what would J-Lo do? And it's kind of that question, isn't it? It's what's your value? If this thing is grating against you, don't force yourself to do cold outreach. Do the thing that feels better and feels right. You can't just do nothing.
Yeah, that. So we know we need values. but we still have that thing where we've got to work them out, right? And I want to go back to the beginning of the podcast and write down all of the various different online tests
Yeah.
that he
Did you do
mentioned.
any of them?
No, because I was driving, so I didn't. I was like, oh, we need to do these. Oh God! But no, I've downloaded the pack from the podcast, so I'm assuming the links or at least
They are. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got the pack, so I will. But his ideas are, and I quite like these. So sort of the thought generating ideas. So the first one, desert island. You're on an island that gives you anything you want materially, but there's nobody there to impress or judge. What do you actually do with your days? Because whatever's left when nobody's watching is a lot closer to your real values than anything else, which I quite liked, though it didn't pain me with my handbag collection. But I still think on a desert island, I'm going to be carrying like rocks and feathers and stuff around. I still might like to do it in a nice bag. And I might need different shapes and colours of bag to do that.
I think that's fine. If there's nobody there to judge you, it doesn't matter. If that's the thing you
Exactly.
like, then go with it.
Yes.
If you
I
feel
probably wouldn't
ashamed of
wear,
having handbags, then that's something else to investigate.
yeah, but I probably wouldn't care about my shoes or my outfit if nobody's there to watch me.
Interesting, but the handbags you would.
Yeah. Would I care about my clothes and makeup? I don't know. It's one of those things you say, well, I do it for myself to feel good. But that is because somebody is going to look at you, right?
Yeah, left to my own devices, I don't get made up or no. I mean, so the part in the podcast where they go through this, he's asked Drew to do it, and he's kind of, oh, I don't know, this, that, and the other, and then he flips it back to Mark and goes, I pretty much do exactly what I'm doing now, which is really smug but quite a funny response.
Yes.
But when I thought about this, I live in a tiny village in the middle of nowhere, and yeah, I don't think my life would be that different. I'd probably have a tidier garden. I think it'd be fairly similar because nobody is watching me here. I can do whatever I want. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So the desert island is one sort of thought experiment. The next one is the funeral. I mean, poor Claire. I've been to Claire's funeral so many times in this podcast. It's ridiculous. What do you want said about you when you're gone? And Drew was saying he gave more than he took, which is quite a nice little summary, isn't it?
So I really struggled with this one. I couldn't think.
Oh.
I don't know what I want people to say about me.
I'd like them to say she was a nice person, not a complete dickhead. I mean,
Yeah.
do you want any more than that, really?
Yeah, I guess that's probably all you want. And their point was if you're saying, oh, I can't remember the exact phrase now, like the best golf swing and
The shag.
best jag ever, you probably want to reevaluate what you're
Yes.
doing with your life.
Took them more cocaine than anybody I've ever met in my life.
Maybe not a value.
Maybe not a value, and maybe not one for the funeral, although that might be why you ended up with one. But yeah. But yeah, I always find the funeral one tricky. And the best one for busy people. This is us. What are your pet peeves? Because things that make you irrationally furious have violated a value of yours.
This one I really liked. And I spent a lot of time thinking about this. Going through, I have got a very long fuse. And I don't know that this is necessarily a good thing. Very, very long fuse, but once it's blown, it's blown. And the things that do it are people not doing what they say they were going to do.
Right. So reliability.
Yeah, and I don't mean that, and they'll get multiple chances, but after it just comes to a point where they've not done the thing that they said they were going to do, or they've doubled down on it, said, I'll definitely do this thing, and they don't. And after the sort of, several years of this, then I'll just blow and that's it, I'm gone. We're dead,
Yeah. So I was I have quite a strong rage on a good mild day at the minute. But for me, it's rudeness, people being rude, and there's people being rude, particularly to like waiters or bar staff or anything like that. Drives me mental. Lateness. Oh,
not doing the thing they said they were going to do.
yeah. Or with lateness, I think what it boils down to is if somebody is late for me, that says they value their time more than my time, or they
Mm.
think that my time is not as important. So
Mm.
that's a sort of fairness
Yeah,
or an
yeah.
importance thing. I don't know.
I have
Um,
something as well about taking personal responsibility for things.
yeah,
So, bad things happen to everybody, and they get into this in the podcast that trauma, you don't have to go looking for trauma. Everybody's got some
yeah,
trauma, and it will have an impact on you for better or worse. But I guess what gets to me is people who never assess their own role in it.
yes,
Uh,
yeah,
and this maybe it's unfair, but I think I try to think about, oh, what part did I play in that? And
yeah.
what can I change?
Yeah, and there in the book that you haven't quite read yet, that I'm halfway through, there is a whole chapter about sort of narcissism and selfishness. And ironically, people who are wildly overconfident and
Mm,
people who are wildly underconfident are both incredibly selfish because people who say, I'm really special because I'm really special and I'm really amazing and I'm really amazing, it's all about them. But people who say, I'm so broken, everything went wrong for me, my life is such a disaster, that's also making themselves special and making
yeah.
themselves unique. So there's a whole thing about kind of taking the being a victim because
Mm,
you can't change what has happened to you and shit will happen because that is inevitable. And he had one guy wrote to him and kind of went, I can't believe you're saying all these things. You know, my daughter died at 12 in a car crash. How can you possibly say any good is going to come of this? And it's kind of, well, I'm kind of not. But you can't change that. All you can change is how you deal with that and
exactly.
what what your response is to it, which sounds really flippant in the moment, and I'm absolutely sure it's not the kind of thing you do overnight. Oh, I'm fine with it. Of course it's not. But
Mm,
there are certainly some people that will always be the woe is me, everything's harder for me than everybody else, and I can't possibly do this. And you go, yeah, but look at the track record. These things keep
it
happening to you.
continues to keep happening.
Is there a common
Right.
denominator in all these things keeping happening to you?
And this is the
Maybe.
long fuse thing, like, okay, until I break. But this is the 10th time now.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. And I think some people are not terribly self-aware. But interestingly, I can't remember if it was in this podcast. It certainly is in the book as well. And the two are, some strong parallels. He was saying that most people who have gone through some hideous trauma, something like cancer, they even
Mm,
did a lot of stories, they did a lot of research on people in Poland who survived the Second World War. So they went through, the Holocaust, they went through
yeah,
invasions and bombings. And then after all of that, then the Russians turned up, right?
yeah,
And it was remarkable how many people actually said, well, do you know what? Actually, some things are now better. And he said, honestly, because no one wants to have cancer or wants to have a
no.
friend
And
die.
they're very clear that this is not saying everyone should go and get cancer.
No,
Very much not.
very much not. However, there is a big correlation between people actually making good choices afterwards because presumably their values have all of a sudden flashed up in big red letters because they've had something really awful happen. So they've had to go, well, actually, what is important to me? Why
Yeah,
am I wasting half my life doing this thing
exactly.
when I nearly died? And it's much more important that I spend time with my family or travel the world or whatever the thing is they want to do. So actually, something like, and I always say, one of the businesses I worked for went quite spectacularly bust, sort of Lehman style. We
Mm,
were there one Thursday afternoon, the day before payday, and it was kind of everybody out, you're not getting paid tomorrow, which at the time was genuinely horrific. I have a mortgage to pay,
yeah.
nothing to go to, just awful. And we were all kind of sitting there in shock. And but I don't think I'd have started the business if that hadn't happened.
Yeah, similar story about one of the companies I worked for. I turned up one day and my boss wasn't there and his PA wasn't there, and they'd got in earlier than I had and been made redundant. I missed it because I'd already resigned the week before because I'd found another job. And that's so awful for them, this, that, and the other. But actually, both of them then went on to do amazing things afterwards.
Yeah,
We wouldn't have done had they stayed at that company.
yeah. And I didn't go straight from that to setting up a business, but it was definitely a stepping stone, I think, because I would have just taken another job because I was looking for a job at the time. So I would have just been in another job,
Yeah.
another corporate, so I wouldn't have ended up taking the steps that I did. So yeah, that was really horrible for everybody involved. But, and I haven't followed everybody's, it wasn't a massive company, so probably, I don't know, 12 of us or something. I haven't followed everyone's trajectory, but I don't know anybody that has, because of that, been in real long-term misery. Other things have happened to people that I know of, but not because of that, right? So yeah, really interesting.
But yeah, that exercise of what really winds you up is as a way to discovering your values. Like, okay, that's some kind of responsibility and reliability very much there.
And for me, fairness and
Yeah.
respect, actually. A lot of it is, I think that's the timekeeping thing. I think it's a respect thing. I respect your time, you respect my time. I always say to people when we're doing diary management, one of the questions on my onboarding list is, if you can't work out what your ideal week should look like, think about what would absolutely drive you mental if it went in there. Because that is the way to discover what you don't want, which helps you realize what you do want. So, if somebody put a meeting in my diary for 4 o'clock on a Friday, I'd be like, oh, for God's sake, no.
Who does that? Who does that?
Who does that? Indeed, indeed. But some of the companies we work with have USA branches. So 4 o'clock on a Friday in the UK is only quite early in the States. So it's like, no, you just have to be reasonable and not do that. But that's the kind of thing that will bind me up. Other people, have different things. But yeah, what I couldn't get to the bottom of, I really, really, really hate people not indicating in cars.
But that's respect. That is
Exactly.
communicating. I'm planning to do this so you can prepare your reaction.
Yeah, one of my friends came back from Northern Ireland and she said, oh, I really struggle with the first 24 hours because nobody uses their indicators. It's like a cultural thing. And I'm like, what?
There are different indicator laws in different countries. So when I was learning to drive in the UK, my instructor was very hard on using indicators on roundabouts correctly.
As he should or she should have been.
Right. And the moment you enter, you start indicating to let people know what you're planning to do. In Spain, they only indicate when they're going to get off the roundabout. So you don't know until they're about to leave.
But then how do you know if you can go?
I know, but
That's the point at which you don't need to bother indicating, surely, because you're already doing it at that point.
Right, so I had a huge argument with an ex-partner about this. He's Spanish, and he was like, "Well, let's have a look at what the Ministry of Transport says." And he was right. In Spain, you don't have to start indicating until you're ready to come off, and then you'll indicate that you're coming off.
But surely the point of a roundabout is that multiple people can move at once, but you can't do that if you can't see what other people are planning to do. Because if they're not going straight, you're round the other way. So it's trying to get a lefts and rights round. You know what I mean? If they're taking the first exit and you're the next exit, you could go, but you can't.
I need to know that they're continuing, so they need to be indicating that they're going to keep going round, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no, they don't do that.
Wild. That's wild.
I know. And most people use the outside lane anyway, because if you have an accident on a roundabout and you're not in the outside lane, the insurance won't cover you.
What?
I know.
I'm never moving to Northern Ireland or Spain from indicators alone. It would grate with all my values. It would be a nightmare. And the other one, and this I'm sure is a politeness, rudeness thing. So we have, and I know Americans who come to the UK and see our driving are like, this is mental. And my friend who's currently in the States went, yeah, people don't communicate when they're driving over here. So I live in a village which is sort of it's a two-way road, one up, one down, but there's lots of cars parked. So you have a lot of giving way. And obviously if the car is parked in front of you, you have to give way to people coming towards you because their lane is clear. And the traditional thing when somebody comes towards you and you've stopped is that they say thank you. And in this village, because we're really polite, we say thank you for saying thank you, and then we go.
And no, I do that, but I got told off by my driving instructor in the UK for doing that.
I get really annoyed with people who don't say thank you, but I also get really annoyed with people, and it's usually men, I've only ever seen one woman do this, who don't use their whole hand, they just use a finger. So that is so lazy. Put your whole hand up, you lazy cow. How hard is it to use your whole hand to say thank you? It's not like, oh, I haven't got the energy to lift my little finger off the steering wheel. It's hard to get over yourself.
But but that's not saying thank you.
It's not, is it? It's just a cursory little, but yeah, but I mean, also the irony is technically they shouldn't need to say thank you because you have to give way to them. It is their right of way. But if they do not, I will be irrationally full of rage, probably for several hours. Why did they say that?
So one of the things at the beginning of the podcast, it talks about where we get our values from. And that one I got from my dad. He would always have lifted the hand. And
Yeah.
my driving instructor told me not to do it. You shouldn't take your hands off the steering wheel.
Maybe that's where the one-fingered people come into it. Okay, that helps. That helps. Maybe they had a very strict driving instructor who said you shouldn't lift your whole hand off the wheel. You just use a finger. Okay.
But I the whole hand comes up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a smile and eye contact.
And if it's really late at night, we'll do the
Oh,
flash
just say that
light.
has to be flashing with lights, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I'm not sure if they're going to be able to see me, then I'll wave and flash lights just to be on the safe side. Because you've got to definitely know.
Just go in Kathy's car.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Right. So we should probably wrap this up. I'm going to go and do some actual online testy things and work out what my values are because that feels important. And I'm going to
At
finish.
the risk of kind of presenting myself as a terrible person who has no time for people who don't really take responsibility, my main value is actually compassion.
I would never
Yeah.
thought that about you, to be honest. I just sound like someone who hates rude people, which I do, but I think one of my strong values is also fairness.
Okay.
I think.
So
I'll be
you
interested
wouldn't
to
have
see.
thought that I'd be compassionate. Wow.
What? No, I would have thought you were compassionate. I wouldn't.
Ouch.
No, I absolutely would have thought you were compassionate. I wouldn't have thought that you. I would have thought you were quite tolerant of. Compared to me, anyway, I'm very intolerant of incompetence. And they did actually have a really good debate about this, which I really liked, because actually it's like, well, you can either pick incompetence or what was the other thing?
Honesty, I think.
Honesty.
Yeah, so you could
Yeah.
have a load of competent liars, or you could have a load of really honest, incompetent people. It's a debate
Yeah.
which is worse.
Which is worse, yeah, particularly if you think of a government or something, right? And yeah, you had to go with, do you know what? I'd take honest over incompetent. I'd suffer some incompetence to get the honesty.
Yeah,
You had to pick, and I think I'm the same, right? It would annoy me, but I would live with it. Whereas dishonesty, I would find really difficult to live with. So yeah, so I've got a couple of quotes from the episode. This is the one I was thinking about earlier. We all want to be rich and liked and have great sex, be king of the world. None of that tells you anything. Your values are found in the pain, they're found in the problems you have. And then this also helps. The quality of your values determines the quality of your problems, and the quality of your problems determines the quality of your life. You never get rid of the problems are always there. The only thing a better value buys you is a better problem.
yeah, that one really stuck with me as well.
And actually, in the book, he talks about the fact that human beings are not good at being left without any problems. I think about the Matrix, right? Nobody could live in a perfect world. It was weird, everyone glitched. But we, as humans, have evolved because we problem solve. So if we don't have problems to solve, we'll just invent them, basically. That's why we need a new handbag or we'll invent our own problems if there isn't one, I think is what we're saying.
Exactly.
And we've made lives more complicated because the big problems for a lot of us are solved to a certain extent. So yeah, I really like that. So yeah, so you don't get to have a life with no problems, you just get to choose your problems
Based on your values.
based on your values. Yeah, exactly. And whether people indicate or not, because that's clearly going to tailspin everybody.
But I'm over it. So mostly because I'm used to it, but also I will then make up reasons why people don't do these things. Like, oh, they were probably, had a really bad night's sleep or whatever it is.
I'm definitely going to use that with one-fingered people going forward. That's really going to help me. So yeah,
Maybe they've got carpal tunnel. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to go with the driving instructor said you're not allowed to take your hand off the wheel because that's a perfectly legitimate thing. And if that's what they were taught, my mum still drives with her hands at 10 to 3. She's like nearly 80. And she's
Strictly speaking, you can be fined here if you're not. But 10 to 3. Yeah.
I mean, I don't drive along, fag in hand, phone in the other hand. But I mean, I'm definitely not at 10 to 2 all the time I'm in the car, right? Who is?
I would say most of the time I am.
I don't think about it, actually. Maybe
But then I'll drive bare feet as well, and we we discovered that that's fineable too.
Oh
Better than
no.
flip-flops, surely.
I think in Japan, I'm sure I read this somewhere, you're not allowed to drive if you have a cold because they're worried that if you sneeze, your eyes shut automatically and you might crash.
I mean, that is true. You do close your eyes
Yeah.
momentarily. You can travel quite far if you're going at
Yes, if it's a big sneeze.
yeah.
Although I always picture Japanese people doing everything very efficiently and neatly. I can't imagine they have loud, long sneezes. I feel that they're going to be contained. But I could be it could be a wild cultural stereotype. Maybe they go crazy when they sneeze. I don't know.
Their one moment of release. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Who knows? Yes. Anyway, thank you so much for talking to me about values. And we will both read the book. If there's anything else we want to discuss, we might discuss it on another episode when we've actually done some values. But yeah, think about why you're doing the things you do and whether they are either rubbing up against your values the wrong way or whether you're working towards something that is your value. And maybe then we will both work out what the meaning of life is that is not fortitude. Thanks ever so much, Helen.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. I really hope you enjoyed that session about values. I absolutely have homework. And I totally recommend you go and check out the Solved podcast. Even if values isn't your thing, there are some really good topics there that just give you a chance to delve into something quite deeply that saves you reading a book, really. But go and check out Solved. It's a corking one. I'll leave you with a quote. A vague quote may not be absolutely the correct quote. Knowledge is knowing how to get something. Wisdom is knowing what is worth getting. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and we will see you next time.